Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 41, 4th Year 04. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 35. Minato was walking through Konoha the next day. Using shadow clones, while one clone attended classes and interacted with his peers, others dedicated themselves to the arduous training of chakra control in his usual training spot. The original Minato, however, had something else to do at that time. That day, he was walking towards the grocery store where he used to work, a job that provided him with some money for his needs. As soon as he arrived at the place, he found the owner sweeping the entrance floor and re-entering. He wasted no time and went to greet him. "Hello, Mr. Imernio," Minato greeted the owner as he entered the store. The bell above the door tinkled, announcing his arrival. "Hello, boy. So you're really leaving?" Imernio replied with a friendly tone, but there was more in his voice. After all, he had been there for 2 years, so he had formed a bond with the man. He was a middle-aged man with a gentle nature. Having settled in Konoha in his early youth, Imernio had built an entire life in the village. He married a local civilian, and together, they opened the grocery store 10 years ago. The man had a daughter who was now in her 20s, a respected chunin in the village. When Minato applied for the job years ago, after seeing the ad in the grocery store window, Imernio asked the boy many questions, who at the time was only 7 years old. Initially suspicious, the man soon realized that Minato was a dedicated and responsible worker over time and never complained about him. The salary was modest, but for Minato, who lived a simple life and knew the harsh realities of being an orphan in Konoha, it was enough. He was already grateful for the opportunity to work, something that not all children had, even in a world that often neglected the notions of childhood and child labor. Minato learned a lot from Imernio, not just about how to run a grocery store, but also about everyday life and the challenges faced by Konoha's civilians. And most importantly, he valued the friendship and guidance the man provided him over the years. "Yes, I have been training more in studying new jutsus. I need to focus more on this now," Minato explained, a little apprehensive about how Imernio would react. "I always knew this day would come, Minato." "Wait, you said jutsus? You're training to be a ninja, Minato?" He raised an eyebrow at that. "Yes, I'm focusing on the academy and need time now," Minato smiled. "Academy? You studied at the academy the whole time?" Imernio asked, a wrinkle of surprise forming on his forehead. The revelation caught him off guard. Minato always seemed so dedicated to work that he assumed the boy was one of those who did not fit into Konoha's rigorous academic system and failed the test. "Actually, I send a clone." "Ha ha." Minato admitted with a somewhat awkward smile, his hand scratching the back of his neck in a typical gesture of discomfort. He knew it was time to reveal the truth. Imernio deserves to know, especially after all these years of support and friendship. "Clone? What do you mean, boy?" Imernio questioned, his expression mixing confusion and curiosity. Minato, realizing the need to demonstrate, crossed his fingers and concentrated. Boof, in an instant, an exact clone of him was by his side. "You can make clones, really?" Imernio exclaimed, his eyes wide with surprise. He knew the capabilities of ninjas, of course, but seeing a young so skilled was something he did not expect. The idea that Minato, a child who worked in his grocery store, could perform feats that even his daughter Chunin found challenging was impressive. "Of course, I'm the best from a program with the best students of my generation," Minato replied. He usually preferred to keep a modest profile, but at that moment, he felt the need to reinforce the truth of his abilities. Old Imernio, recovering from the initial shock, smiled with a mix of pride and sadness. "Well, that just shows that you really are special, Minato. I always knew there was something more about you. Just promise me one thing, boy. No matter how far you go or how amazing you become, don't forget to dedicate yourself with all your strength, no matter what you do." Minato, looking at the man, responded with gratitude. "I promise, Mr. Imernio. I will never forget." The two talked a bit more, reminiscing about memorable moments and laughing at funny incidents that happened over the years. When it finally came time for Minato to leave, he promised to visit whenever he could and thanked Imernio for everything. "I want to thank you for everything in these 2 years. Thanks to the money from work, I was able to buy necessary things for training." Minato spoke, his gratitude sincere and deep. He knew that without the financial help from the job, many aspects of his training would have been much more difficult. "I thank you too, boy. Here, a bonus for your help over the years. Good luck in your ninja career," Imernio said, handing Minato an envelope with extra money. It was a generous gesture, reflecting the respect and affection he had for the young man. Minato accepted the envelope, a feeling of appreciation and resolve growing within him. "Thank you, Mr. Imernio. I won't forget what I learned here, and I'll always be grateful," he said, his voice firm and full of promise. Leaving the grocery store, Minato felt a mix of emotions but soon focused on his training. As soon as he left Imernio's grocery store, Minato returned to his training field. The place was quiet, none of the girls had sent a clone to join him that day, so he concentrated entirely on his training. The sun was moving west as he worked with his Pika Pika Nomi technique. "I can move a few meters without destabilizing, but it's quite time-consuming," Minato murmured, assessing his performance. He was becoming more skilled in controlling light, but patience was not easy for a young man as ambitious as he. "I can't complain when I'm just a 9-year-old kid, can I?" he thought, trying to put things in perspective. Determined to keep improving, Minato undid his training clones and created 7 more, each with a specific task. He positioned them in a circle around him, each with a leaf on their forehead, a classic exercise to improve chakra control. They were focused, their expressions serious and determined, a reflection of Minato himself. As the sun began to hide, the field filled with murmurs and subtle movements, each Minato clone fully immersed in the control exercise. "I'm getting good at this, in a while I could start training to walk on trees and move with my feet over water," Minato murmured to himself as he watched his clones practice. This skill was an important milestone for any shinobi, and he knew that the academy would soon start teaching it. However, with his memories from a past life and the experience he was accumulating, he had the advantage of starting this training earlier. Despite being only 9 years old, he felt he should have already mastered these techniques. However, dividing his time between training his ability with the fruit, enhancing his body with observation haki, meant his progress was not as fast as he would like. Still, he knew he was on the right track and that his strength was within the expected range for his ambitions. After a full day of training and with his academy clones finally dissipating, Minato decided to take a walk through the village in the late afternoon. He wanted to enjoy the peaceful atmosphere of Konoha, absorb the peaceful energy the night brought, and perhaps reflect a bit on the day. As he walked, his observations of the village and its inhabitants were interrupted when he saw a familiar figure traversing the downtown streets. It was Kushina Uzumaki. He remembered, through the memories of his clone, that the class had been normal that day, no fights, just chakra training in theory. Kushina was surprised when Suna commented that Minato in the room was a clone, and that the real Minato rarely went to class, opting to send a shadow substitute on most days. "You?" Kushina noticed Minato and looked at him with an expression of surprise and a hint of suspicion. "Is it a clone or are you real, Databane?" she asked, using her characteristic catchphrase, her tone indicating a mix of curiosity and a slight playful accusation. "I'm real, Kushina." Minato smiled at the girl, trying to convey calmness and friendship through his gaze. Kushina observed him in silence, evaluating him with her penetrating and inquisitive eyes. "What are you doing here alone? Where's Tsuna?" Minato asked. Kushina's solitary presence in the center of the village at dusk was unexpected. "She went to train, and I wanted to see the village. It was boring with everyone doing something, even Mito had a meeting with the Hokage this afternoon, so I decided to walk and I didn't want to be accompanied by a clone," she explained, her voice a bit cautious at first but clearly expressing frustration at the end. I see, I'm walking too, do you want to accompany me?" Minato asked, and Kushina looked at him a little surprised by the offer. I guess so," she commented, a slight blush appearing on her cheeks. There was a mix of hesitation and willingness in her voice. "Great, then come with me." Minato approached Kushina and gently pulled her to the opposite side. "But I just came from there, Databane," she immediately complained, her tone mixing protest and surprise. "Come on, I bet you haven't seen everything. I'll show you some places I know on this side of the village." Minato confidently smiled at Kushina, who felt a bit embarrassed but curious about the offer. "Minato, why are you so nice to me?" she suddenly asked as they walked side by side. Her question made Minato stop and look at the 8-year-old girl more attentively. "What do you mean?" he asked, raising one of his eyebrows. "You're different from other people. Besides the kids who always look at me as if I were a total stranger, Suna is nice. But you're different, I can't explain. You're a bit strange." Kushina's words made Minato stumble slightly, surprised by her honesty and insight. "Strange? You think I'm strange?" Minato asked, a bit alarmed by the unexpected description. He wasn't used to being called that, especially in a way that seemed more of an observation than a critique. "That's not what I meant, Databane." Kushina shouted the last part as if it were an apology, her voice showing signs of panic mixed with frustration. She didn't want to offend Minato, but her words seemed to come out wrong. "It's just, you look at me strangely, you always smile when I look at you," she explained, her cheeks tinged with red. "Well, I like you, Kushina," Minato commented, trying to ease the tension. He was about to continue, explaining what he meant, but a quick punch came in his direction. His observation haki activated at that moment, and he easily dodged the attack. "Hey, why are you doing that?" Minato was surprised by the sudden aggression. He didn't expect Kushina to react that way. You. Kushina murmured, with her head lowered, clearly struggling to control her emotions. When she finally raised her head, her hair began to lift as if possessed, her face was the color of her hair, and her eyes were white with indignation, an expression Minato had never seen on Kushina. "Don't say those things to people, especially someone you just met, Databane," Kushina shouted with all her might, leaving Minato even more stunned and confused. "What? I didn't mean those things, Kushina. We're just kids, for Rijiku's sake." Minato tried to explain, a bit frustrated with the misunderstanding. "In 10 years, I might make a romantic declaration, but not now." He crossed his arms, trying to appear indignant, but saw Kushina still redder as she tried to punch him rapidly. "Don't say those things either," she yelled, each word accompanied by a new attack that Minato skillfully avoided. The villagers passing by the street were stunned by the unusual scene of 2 children fighting in the middle of the path. The red-haired girl was trying incessantly to punch the blonde-haired boy, who seemed to predict all the girl's attacks, who was clearly beside herself. Chapter 42, 4th Year 05. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 35. The tense and emotion-laden atmosphere that prevailed between Minato and Kushina gives way to a relative calm. The sun begins to set in Konoha, casting a gentle golden light over the village streets, and with it, Kushina, still somewhat agitated but significantly calmer after the outburst of anger and confusion, walks alongside Minato. They take a less busy path, away from the curious gazes of the villagers. They are walking in silence, just walking. Minato decides to break the silence. "Kushina," he begins, his voice soft and cautious, "I didn't mean to make you angry." Kushina, still a bit embarrassed by her own explosive behavior, looks away, observing the elongated shadows of the trees on the road. "I know, maybe I overreacted. I'm just not used to this kind of thing," she admits, her voice lower, almost a whisper. "And I'm not used to someone being so nice to me since I arrived." They continue walking, Minato guiding Kushina to a quieter part of the village, where nature predominates and the noise of the main streets gives way to the gentle sound of leaves rustling in the wind. It's a place he often goes to think or just to escape from training sometimes. Minato looks at Kushina and begins, "You know, Kushina, Konoha has many tranquil places like this. Sometimes, when things get too hectic, I come here just to think. Kushina, her steps echoing softly beside his, responds a bit timidly, "It's beautiful here." So Konoha has places like this. Minato and Kushina continue their walk through the village, now with a lighter and more relaxed atmosphere between them. Minato takes on the role of guide to show Kushina the interesting places in Konoha that he's discovered over the years. "See that tree there?" Minato points to an ancient cherry tree with branches gracefully extending into the sky. "It's one of the oldest in the village. They say the first Hokage himself planted it. During spring, it's covered in pink flowers. It's one of my favorite spots to relax." Kushina looks on with admiration, her expression softening as she imagines the tree in full bloom. "It must be beautiful," she comments, a glint of anticipation in her eyes. "I'd love to see it." "I'll bring you here when spring comes," Minato comments with a small smile. They continue walking, and Minato leads Kushina to a small bridge crossing a serene stream. This stream comes from the forest to the north. Sometimes, you can find small fish or even frogs here. I used to come here to try and catch them when I was younger. Kushina leans over the railing, looking into the clear water. "I never did something like this in Yuzushiogakure." "It seems fun." Minato smiles, remembering his youthful antics. "Maybe one day I can show you how to do it. It's harder than it looks." They proceed to an area with various shops and stalls, the smell of food and the sound of laughter filling the air. "This is the central market," Minato explains. "You can find almost anything here. Food, clothes, ninja tools. And sometimes, they have game stalls during festivals." Kushina observes with interest, her eyes scanning the various stalls and shops. "It's so busy and colorful," she says, a smile forming. "It's very different from Yuzushiogakure, but I like it." Minato waves to a familiar dango vendor and buys some for them, explaining, "You have to try this. It's one of the best things here." Kushina accepts, tasting the sweet with a look of delight. "I like ramen more, but I don't dislike dango," Kushina comments, eating her food with a smile. "Do you want to eat? There's a stall near here." Minato suggests it wasn't ramen Ichiraku, as it hadn't been opened during that time, so they went to another one he had tried last year. Thus, Minato and Kushina entered the stall to eat. Minato paid for everything without any problem with his money. As the day gives way to night, the two leave the ramen stall with Kushina happy, and Minato shows her more special places, a small park where children play, a lookout offering an impressive view of the village, and even a secret hideout that he discovered 2 years ago. With each new place, Kushina feels more connected to the village and to Minato, grateful to have someone who cares enough to share these places with her. At the end of the tour, both feel closer to each other, as if they had shared not just the sights of Konoha but pieces of their own stories. Minato, happy to have alleviated the earlier misunderstanding, and Kushina, finding comfort and friendship in the place she now calls home. In the end, Minato decides to take Kushina to a location that has special significance not just for him but for the entire village of the Leaf, the Hokage Rock. "There's one last place I want to show you before it gets completely dark," Minato says, a glow of pride and a hint of mystery in his voice. Kushina, curious and excited about the prospect of discovering another special spot in Konoha, follows him without hesitation. They walk through quieter streets now, as the day begins to give way to night, and the shadows lengthen on the sidewalks. The noise from the central market and the busier areas of the village gradually fades, replaced by the gentle sound of their footsteps and the occasional chirping of a night bird. Finally, they arrive at the foot of a large mountain, where the faces of the Hokages are carved into the stone, looking out over the village with a silent, eternal dignity. The Hokage Rock is a symbol of the spirit and history of Konoha, representing not just the leaders of the past but also the ideals and legacy each one left behind. "This is the place," Minato says, stopping and looking up at the imposing faces carved into the rock. The Hokage Rock. Kushina looks up, impressed by the magnitude and beauty of the monument. "It's amazing, seeing it up close," she murmurs, her voice full of wonder. "Let's go up there," Minato suggests. "Can we go there?" Kushina expresses her surprise. "Almost no one goes, but there's a path for it." "Let's go." Minato smiles, and they move forward. Entering through a side entrance of the mountain, they quietly follow the path until they ascend tens of meters to the line of heads, and Minato jumps onto Hashirama's head with Kushina following him. Is this Mito's husband? Kushina expresses her words with a laugh as she jumps onto Hashirama's head with joy. Yes, Hashirama and even his brother were great leaders, though I disagree with some of their actions. Minato comments and murmurs at the end. And the third Hokage? Kushina, hearing the first part, asks curiously as Minato doesn't mention the current Hokage. It's complicated. Minato murmurs and continues. But all three are very strong, they always protected and guided the village through difficult times. For most of Konoha, they are heroes. Minato explains, looking in the direction of the entire village. Kushina doesn't ask any more questions and takes a few steps to stand beside Minato, who is looking at the village at that moment. They stand there for a moment, in silence, looking over the entire village, circled with its great wall, lost in their own thoughts. As twilight envelopes the village with its cozy homes lit by soft lights, the quiet streets now dotted only by a few residents returning home, and the outline of trees and buildings drawing a peaceful and familiar landscape. Minato looks at the village and speaks to Kushina. Look, Kushina, Minato says, pointing to the view in front of them. Konoha is really beautiful at night, isn't it? Kushina, observing the village she now also calls home, can't help but agree. It's beautiful. She murmurs, her voice carrying a mix of wonder and a twinge of nostalgia. It reminds me of Yuzushi Ogokure. The way the lights shine at night, the sense of peace. I miss it. She falls silent for a moment, lost in memories of her native village, of the Uzumaki, and of a life that now seems both familiar and distant, having been forced to come to Konoha to be trained as the new host of the Nine Tails. The longing in her heart is evident in her expression, a soft sadness that colors her eyes. Minato notices the change in her mood and places a comforting hand on her shoulder. It must be hard, leaving behind everything you knew. But Kushina, Yuzushi Ogokure will always be a part of who you are. And now, Konoha too. You have a new place to call home, new friends. And I'm here if you need anything. Kushina looks at Minato, grateful for his words and the understanding he offers. Thank you, Minato. That means a lot to me. Most kids don't like me or mock me, but it's good to know I'm not alone here. I have Suna, you, and even Makoto with her strange ways, but she doesn't have the disgust that others show. They stand there, side by side, looking over the village stretched out below them. The night is fully established now, and the stars begin to appear in the sky, each shining like a promise of hope and continuity. The view of Konoha, with its tranquil and welcoming beauty, offers them a moment of peace and reflection. Minato decides to break the silence once more, making sure Kushina is listening, then continues. The people here, we're strong because we support each other. We grow together, learn together, and face our challenges together as ninjas of Konoha. You're not alone here, Kushina. You're a part of us now, and that means you'll always have someone to lean on. Kushina looks at Minato, his words slowly dissipating the cloud of sadness that enveloped her. And I want you to know, Minato adds, that whenever you need a friend, or someone to listen, or even just someone to walk in silence beside you, I'll be here. We all face tough times, but together we're stronger. Together, we can find the light, even on the darkest night. Minato speaks and thinks Socratically as he is now the man of light. Minato's words are not just a consolation but a promise of friendship, support, and understanding. Kushina feels a warmth in her heart, a sense that, despite all she has lost, she has also gained something invaluable that day. She smiles, a shy but genuine smile, and nods her head, accepting Minato's words. Thank you, Minato, she says, her voice steady, though still carrying a trace of emotion. I'm starting to see that Konoha can be a home for me too. And I'm glad to have you as my friend. She speaks and touches on another subject. Do you think that someday, Kushina begins, hesitantly, one of us could be carved into that mountain too? She asks timidly, knowing already that Minato's dream was also to become Hokage, and he held his dream firmly, even advocating for her, who should be his rival. Minato looks at her, an encouraging smile on his lips. I wouldn't doubt it. You have a strong and powerful spirit, Kushina. And I. Well, I have my own dreams too. Kushina smiles back, a feeling of determination growing within her. Then, let's work hard. Together. From today we are rivals for the title of Hokage, Databane. She declares, shouting. That. Minato is surprised by this. He didn't expect to create this kind of relationship with Kushina, as the night finally falls over the village. Minato and Kushina make their way back home, each with their own dreams and ambitions but with the understanding that they have in each other a friend and ally on the path they have chosen to follow. Just say yes, let's promise that one of us will become Hokage. She insists, and Minato sighs. Alright, let's promise that one of us will become Hokage, Minato murmurs. Great, but we should promise this with our pinky fingers, Databane. She says, approaching and extending her finger to Minato at that moment. Minato sighs and extends his finger too, sealing that pact made by the girl. Silence falls on them again, but now it's a comfortable silence, filled with the promise of mutual support and a newly strengthened friendship. They continue to watch the village, now not just as two individuals lost in their own longings but as friends who share a common path and a future full of possibilities. Chapter 43, 4th Year 06. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 35. As night deepened in Konoha, Minato and Kushina left the Hokage stones to return to the village, taking the same path they had climbed up the mountain. They returned to the village, and Minato escorted Kushina to the Senju mansion. Then we'll see each other another time, Minato said with a smile, and Kushina looked at him suspiciously. Are you going to send a clone to school again? She asked. On days without theoretical lessons, I intend to do just that. I plan to leave my original to train other important things. The clones can absorb the lesson and train in chakra refinement that teacher Fumi will give us, Minato explained, scratching his head. I understand. But anyway, thanks for the walk, I enjoyed it much more than I imagined, so we'll go another time, Minato. She said with a shy smile and went to the entrance of the complex. Minato nodded and headed back to the orphanage. After briefly explaining to Madame Garita about his delay, he did his things before resting for the next day. As the weeks in Konoha unfolded, filled with learning and growth, Minato continued to hone his skills and knowledge with the help of his clones at his usual training ground. I think I can start this kind of training today, Minato murmured, looking at his goal for the day. It was a sunny day with the sun already high in the sky, and the wind gently blowing through the leaves. Minato found himself in a clearing surrounded by tall, robust trees. He looked up, observing how the branches intertwined, forming a complex pattern against the blue sky. This is where he would test himself, where he would learn to climb. This hasn't been taught at the academy yet, but as I remember, you need to concentrate your chakra in the soles of your feet in a balanced way. I already know how to distribute chakra throughout my body to enhance physical conditions, however, this is a bit more complex. Minato reasoned before crossing his hands in a seal. Focusing deeply, Minato began the exercise. He knew that the key to success was meticulous control of the chakra he had been training for a long time, allowing him to adhere to the tree's surface without using his hands or feet. After feeling the chakra in his feet and trying to regulate its amount, Minato lifted his foot to the tree before starting to walk. He managed to fix his feet and was climbing. This isn't so difficult, HM? At that moment, his foot sank into the tree, causing him to lose balance and fall from the tree. He didn't hurt himself, landing on his feet, but he wouldn't have bothered otherwise, as his body enters a state of light at any damage. He tried again, going in a slightly longer direction before having the same result. I think I understand how this works now, I just need to practice. Minato thought before crossing his arms, but then noticed something with his observation haki. Someone is coming at high speed, but it's not an umbu like my spies. This one is certainly not making an effort to hide his presence. Minato analyzed the person coming at speed and it didn't take long for them to arrive, but the identity left Minato quite surprised. It was Jiraiya. His face was young, he was wearing his normal village headband instead of the sage one he had in Classic and Shippuden Naruto. What do we have here? A young ninja training? He said with a smile, and Minato almost rolled his eyes. He knew this meeting wasn't by chance. Jiraiya already knew he would find Minato here. Who are you? Minato asked with narrowed eyes. He couldn't say, "Hello Jiraiya." The boy doesn't know the famous Jiraiya? Jiraiya asked as if Minato had committed a crime. No. Minato replied calmly, he wasn't lying, after all, he only knew a 2D character, not a real one. What? The famous Jiraiya is unknown to an academy child, but we can resolve that. You don't know the disciples of the current Hokage? Jiraiya asked with a growl, hoping Minato would know. Of course, there's Suna's mother, Tsunade Senju, some weird guy named Orochimaru, I think that's his name. Minato said, hand on chin. Yes, and the last one? Jiraiya maintained his expectant face in his 20s. I think that's all, I don't know any others. Minato finally spoke. This made Jiraiya fall to the ground in depression. Are you okay, uncle? Minato asked worriedly, but inside he was laughing at the situation. I am, it's just that I didn't expect to be not so famous. Jiraiya lamented. So who are you? Minato asked with a curious tone. I guess I'll have to introduce myself. He said still in a sad tone, but when the last word left his mouth, he changed the tone to someone more excited. With a dramatic movement, Jiraiya adopts a heroic pose, and, mysteriously, a pompous and theatrical sound seems to emerge from nowhere, filling the air around him. Where is that sound coming from? Minato wonders, clearly intrigued. He had never heard anything like it, and for a moment, wonders if Jiraiya is capable of more than he appears. I am the successful ninja writer, whose novels will soon be bestsellers in all bookstores of Konoha and beyond. Jiraiya begins with a flourish, his tone full of pride and a glint of enthusiasm in his eyes. But writing is just one of my many facets. He pauses dramatically, allowing his words to settle in the air before continuing. I am also known as the Sage of the Mountain, whose feats are spoken of throughout the country, whose strength and wisdom are legendary. His voice grows in enthusiasm, almost as if he himself is being carried away by the stories he tells. And let's not forget, of course, my reputation among women, particularly those who frequent the bathhouse. Ah, it's a hard life being so adored, he says with a roguish smile, adding a note of irreverent charm to his presentation. Minato becomes increasingly dazed by this character and his poses and speeches. But above all, I am Jiraiya, the direct disciple of the third Hokage and an apprentice of the wise toads of Mount Myaboku. I am destined for great deeds and epic adventures. His presentation ends with another dramatic pose and the mysterious sound resonating once more, as a final touch to his words. Minato watches, speechless. Well, what's your name again? Minato asked again, wanting to forget everything he saw, causing Jiraiya to fall to the ground again. How can you forget my name after my epic presentation? It's Jiraiya. Jiraiya shouted at Minato. Well, then it's a pleasure, Jiraiya. Minato honestly didn't know what to say. Well, I said my name, what's yours? He crossed his arms. Minato Namikaze. Minato murmured. Minato? The one who was the prodigy of the academy in the elite/prodigy class? Jiraiya asked, pretending to be a little surprised. I guess so. Minato replied calmly. Wait, shouldn't you be at the academy at this moment? Jiraiya raised the issue. I send a shadow clone, theoretical lessons can be dealt with clones. Minato responds easily, he has no reason to hide this from Jiraiya, moreover, Jiraiya must have observed him out of his reach of haki, he just didn't expect Jiraiya to see him using his light ability. Shadow clone? At 9 years old, that seems to be a great feat. I saw you are starting the tree climbing training, as one of the most powerful ninjas in Konoha, I noticed your difficulties and will assist you with that. He said, seeming quite helpful. Is he being nice to me? Well, maybe he's already interested in me, after all, I will be part of his team in the future. Minato wouldn't waste a teaching from Jiraiya, so he agreed with a few words, since it still wasn't taught in the academy and he only had the knowledge from the work in the Naruto era. With a nod of approval, Jiraiya approaches Minato, ready to share his wisdom and experience with a smile. Minato, climbing trees using chakra control is a fundamental skill for any shinobi. It's not just about strength or the amount of chakra, but about fine control and perception. Jiraiya begins, his tone now completely focused on training. You need to feel the tree, sense how the chakra interacts with it. It's as if you're asking permission to climb, not forcing your way, he explains, walking up to the base of one of the trees and placing his hand on the bark. Watching closely, Minato sees Jiraiya concentrate a small amount of chakra in the palm of his hand, which glows softly against the tree. See, it's gentle, almost like a dance. You need to balance your chakra in such a way that it's strong enough to support you but not so strong that it damages the tree or throws you off balance. Jiraiya then steps back and, with surprising grace, begins to climb the tree, each step carefully measured and controlled. Minato watches, impressed by the ease and fluidity of Jiraiya's movements as an elite jonin. You also need to be aware of your own body, Minato. Every movement should be precise and intentional. Any hesitation or excess force, and you'll lose your balance, Jiraiya continues, now speaking from above, easily balanced in the tree. Minato nods, absorbing every word. He then focuses, attempting to mimic the technique Jiraiya demonstrated. Initially, he still finds it challenging, but with Jiraiya's guidance and his own relentless determination, he begins to make visible progress. That's it, Minato. Just like that. Feel the flow of chakra, feel the tree. It's a delicate balance, but you're getting the hang of it, Jiraiya encourages, watching from the heights as Minato practices. With the unexpected help of Jiraiya, Minato feels a new surge of confidence and understanding. He continues to practice, each attempt taking him a little higher, each movement becoming a bit more natural. As the training session progresses that afternoon, Minato not only improves his tree climbing ability but also gains a new perspective on chakra control. And, perhaps more importantly, he gains a new respect for Jiraiya, not just as a colorful and flamboyant figure, but as a skilled shinobi and a generous future mentor. When he finally masters the technique after an hour of training, Minato looks up at Jiraiya with gratitude and respect. Thank you, Jiraiya. I learned a lot today, he said atop the tree, maintaining the proper flow of chakra in the soles of his feet. Jiraiya just smiles, shrugging with false modesty. Ah, it was nothing. Just doing my part to help the next generation. But remember, Minato, the path of the shinobi is long and filled with challenges. Keep training, keep learning, and who knows? One day, you might even surpass me, Jiraiya spoke with a smile and turned around. I'm off now, I need to do some research. I mean, the Hokage is calling me. He said and left, jumping between the trees. Minato knew he was going to spy on the women's hot springs, but he felt grateful for Jiraiya's support in their first encounter. Chapter 44, 4th Year 07. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 35. After Jiraiya left, Minato resumed his training with renewed enthusiasm. He summoned several shadow clones, each beginning to climb the trees around. Surprised, Minato realized he could now create 15 clones, 3 more than in the morning after his training. He watched each of their movements closely, absorbing the lessons his clones learned as they exercised. This is amazing. He murmured to himself, amazed at his own rapid learning ability and adaptability. An hour later, he made an even more exciting discovery after perfecting the technique. He could now sustain 20 shadow clones throughout the day, a significant improvement in his capacity and endurance. Energized by these advancements, he decided to start the other training, and Minato headed to the tranquil river near the training site. Without wasting a second, he summoned 80 clones, each ready to face the next challenge, learning to walk on water. The first steps were uncertain. The clones repeatedly sank, causing waves and splashes. Minato continued training, insisting on learning and developing the technique on the same day. The afternoon passed quickly as he and his clones practiced tirelessly, and, by dusk, he felt profound exhaustion but also immense satisfaction. Dissolving the clones, a flurry of experiences and learnings flowed back to him. He felt crammed with new information and a sense of accomplishment, as the accumulation of experience at that moment gave him many discoveries and mistakes with points of views the original hadn't noticed. Although exhausted, Minato smiled, aware that his hard work was paying off. He had advanced significantly in just one day and was very close to mastering the technique now. As Minato contemplated the next step to finally learn the technique, hidden in the dense foliage of a distant tree in the forest, a man with distinctive white hair watched Minato from afar. He hadn't left as Minato assumed but had stayed, curiosity keeping him bound to the training scene of the boy. Jiraiya, with a thoughtful expression, whispers to himself while keeping his eyes fixed on the young man's actions. This kid can create dozens of shadow clones and still knows how to use them to their full potential. He's not just a prodigy, he's a little monster. Jiraiya murmurs, impressed with Minato's natural ability and fierce determination. He learned to climb trees and is already almost mastering walking on water. It took me more than a week to achieve that when I was 13. Jiraiya continued his analysis. And there's more, the boy is a type of sensor. He sensed me tens of meters before I got to him. You're surprising me more and more, kid, he admits with a knowing look. Realizing he'd seen enough and that Minato was preparing to end the day, Jiraiya finally decided to withdraw from his hiding spot, disappearing silently among the forest's shadows. Meanwhile, Minato, unaware of the secret observer, prepared to end the day. This was very good, just with this experience, it won't take long to learn the technique, he thought aloud, satisfied with his progress. With a plan in mind, he created 10 clones with what remained of his chakra reserves to continue training throughout the night. Original, this is unfair. You're going to rest while we stay up all night. After a brief farewell, in which the clones joked about the unfairness of working while the original rested, Minato walked away, returning to the orphanage to recover his energy for another day of learning and growth. Minato ignored the complaints of his clones and returned to the orphanage. Tomorrow, he would return, ready to continue his training. The next day he woke up receiving all the information from the clones that trained through the early hours. All of them had mastered the techniques and continued to do so for hours. He was satisfied and felt he could put 30 clones to train for him all day long. He sent his clone to class and went to train again. Kushina appeared that day since the girl decided she would train with him. "Hey, can you already do this?" she exclaimed as she saw Minato training on the water to test his skills' effectiveness. "Yes, I started yesterday and trained with my clones." Minato murmured excitedly while walking on the water on his first attempt. This even awakened his childish side as he jumped to test his effectiveness. "Damn it, Minato, I won't lose to you, Databane!" Kushina shouted and made a hand seal, creating 58-year-old Kushinas. Wow, how much chakra she has! She hasn't even learned exercises that help her refine and control chakra, and she already has this number of clones? Although she has training in Fuinjutsu. Minato pondered. "Hey, Kushina. I may not have been physically in class, but my clones are seeing you beat up all the boys who mock you." Minato suddenly spoke. "Yes, they mock my hair, and I beat them, Databane," she said with conviction. "Ha ha ha. But your hair is beautiful." Minato was sincere and innocent here. "Don't say that to people, Databane." All 50 clones shouted at the same time with red faces. "HY, forget about that. Let's train taijutsu." Minato wanted to get to this point, not to anger multiple clones of Kushina, because that would be too dangerous. "All right." Her original spoke, and they moved away while the clones trained in other aspects. Minato and Kushina trained together, fighting each other. Minato and Kushina, now side by side, were ready to train taijutsu. Now it was time to focus on honing their hand-to-hand combat skills. Kushina looks at Minato with a competitive glint in her eyes. "Are you ready, Minato?" she asks, assuming a combat stance. "I won't go easy just because you're my friend." Minato smiles, excited by the prospect of the challenge. "I wouldn't expect any less from you, Kushina. Let's see what you've got." They both engage in combat, Minato always smoother and more precise against an aggressive Kushina. She even added chakra to her legs and arms to become even faster and quicker. This training continued for hours, and they finally stopped. Kushina, with a look of mild frustration, murmured, "Damn it, Minato. You didn't let me beat you once." Her words reflected the competitive nature of the young Uzumaki. Minato, with a friendly smile, replied, "I was lucky, it was good training." His response was not just courtesy but a sincere acknowledgement of Kushina's effort and skill. "Luck, Databane. She mocked, not completely convinced, but unable to hide a reluctant smile. Changing the subject, Minato brought up a question that had been weighing on his mind.
Kushina, can you help me with a question?
He asked, capturing her attention.
What is it? Kushina replied, curious. Well, now that I'm unemployed, I'll have to make money in another way.
I'm thinking of creating exploding tags to sell to ninja stores.
Could you help me? Minato explained, aware of Kushina's talent in Fuinjutsu and hoping the girl could assist him. Kushina frowned, concerned. Do you know how dangerous this is? You should do this when you're at a high intermediate level.
She reprimanded him, the responsibility evident in her voice. Minato, having already considered the risks, assured her, it may be, but I'll use my clones to create them.
If something goes wrong, the clone explodes, and I learn. It's quite an advantage. Minato informed. Kushina, still hesitant but recognizing Minato's logic, relented. Well, alright, let me know when you need me. She declared, and with a mischievous laugh, she added, anyway, it's time for me to go. Suna doesn't even know she's been next to a clone the whole time, Databane.
The revelation brought a mischievous twinkle to her eyes. She walked away, leaving Minato alone with his thoughts and plans.
As Kushina disappeared from sight, Minato bid farewell, returning to finish his training.
Minato continued his training with the clones, doing some seals and other exercises, and he returned to the orphanage as night fell. At dawn the next day, Minato was determined to start a new phase of his training. He planned to finally produce exploding tags. However, for that, he needed to acquire special chakra ink, a notoriously expensive material. Despite the significant cost that would consume almost all his savings, Minato saw this as an essential investment for a new income. Walking through the village at an unusual time for an academy student, he chose to pass through a vacant lot to cut through.
That's when he witnessed something unexpected and inspiring.
A teenager was training intensely, but it was no ordinary training. The young man was doing upside-down push-ups with energy and vigor that immediately captivated Minato.
1998, 1999, 2000. The teenager counted his push-ups, each number marked by visible effort.
Upon reaching the 2000 mark, he burst out in an enthusiastic yell, "Long live the power of youth!" The passion and fervor were palpable, even contagious.
Minato couldn't help but be surprised and impressed.
The young man before him was Might Due, a legendary figure in his teens. Minato knows this guy is mocked in the village and will be so for many years. He is only recognized when he dies, which he always thought was terribly unfair. Minato knew Dewey's story, that he was the one who developed the 8 Gates technique and how, in a legendary fight, he faced the 7 swordsmen of the mist and emerged as a hero, saving his son and other ninjas and killing 4 of the 7 sword lords of Kiri. Inspired and curious, Minato felt it was time to approach. It's time to meet a true genius of the village, he thought, an expectant smile on his face. Might Due was among the people Minato most wished to meet, and now, fate had arranged an encounter between them, as he never met him in the last years.
With a light step and a heart full of admiration, Minato approached Due. He knew this interaction could be the beginning of a unique alliance between two individuals who shared a passion for taijutsu.
Minato, with plans to develop his own style, incorporating the 6 styles of the Navy and armament hockey, saw in Due a possible mentor and ally.
Chapter 45, 4th Year 08. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 35. Minato, with silent and determined steps, approached the spot where Might Due was training.
The intensity of Dewey's training was such that he didn't even notice Minato approaching, completely engrossed in his counting and the energy of his upside-down push-ups. Minato approached cautiously and called out with a polite smile, "Impressive training." His voice broke the silence, and Due quickly stood up, surprised but not alarmed by Minato's presence.
"Hey, what do we have here?" Due exclaimed, the energy vibrating in his voice. "A young man from the village has come to visit me in my training? Tell me, young shinobi, what brings you to my humble training field?" Minato, still slightly disconcerted by Dewey's immense enthusiasm and welcoming aura, couldn't help but smile in response. "Hello, I am Minato. I saw you training here and couldn't help but be impressed. You are Might Due, right? I've heard about your abilities and, well, I'm also training to be a great shinobi too.
Due, always encouraging and eager to share the spirit of youth and growth, leaned forward with interest.
Ah, Minato. So you've heard of me? Ha ha ha, that's wonderful. Yes, I am Might Due, and I'm here every day seeking to surpass my limits. The power of youth is a marvelous thing, isn't it?
His enthusiasm was contagious, and Minato could feel it.
Minato, nodding, spoke, yes, it's true. I'm also trying to surpass my own limits. I was thinking, maybe we could train together sometime?
I've always heard of a genin who can't cast jutsus, but he's a genius when it comes to physical training. Due, quite surprised that a child said this to him since everyone is more interested in casting jutsus than physical training, looked at the child in front of him with stars in his eyes.
You're really interested in my training? Due asked, a glint of hope and surprise in his eyes.
That sounds like an exciting journey, Minato.
Yes, let's train together. Youth is about overcoming challenges and growing stronger. Minato nodded, pleased with Due's acceptance.
Unfortunately, he couldn't train with Due today, but that didn't stop him from scheduling a training session and having a conversation to assist him with his afternoon practice.
Yes, I am.
I believe that taijutsu was a crucial part of being a shinobi. He said and responded to Due's comment, and thank you, that's great, I won't be able to today, but I want to explain some things about my training if you can help me.
Minato said.
Explaining his interest in taijutsu and his admiration for Due, Minato expressed a desire to learn and perhaps even train together. He mentioned his own plans to develop a unique style, combining taijutsu with other techniques. Minato was enthusiastic about the prospect of enhancing his skills and adding new techniques to his repertoire. Among the skills he wished to master were Saro and Jeppo, techniques that would allow rapid movements and the ability to walk in the air, characteristic of One Piece. However, he knew that these techniques were not common in this world and that Might Due, despite being a connoisseur of taijutsu, probably wouldn't have all his knowledge at this time, but Minato wanted to learn what he could from this man.
Due, I was thinking, could you help me with training to strengthen my body?
There are some techniques I want to learn that require exceptional agility and strength, Minato explained, without going into details about Saro and Jeppo.
Due nodded enthusiastically. Of course, Minato. Strengthening the body is fundamental for any shinobi.
I can show you routines and exercises that will increase your strength, speed, and endurance.
Let's make you one of the fastest and most agile shinobis Konoha has ever seen. Minato smiled, grateful for Due's willingness and enthusiasm. That would be great.
I'm especially interested in enhancing my speed and movement ability. They discussed the principles of training, the specific areas of the body that would need attention, and the routines Minato should follow. Due emphasized the importance of knowing your own limits and gradually surpassing them. Minato was surprised that even at this time, which he doubted Due would be beginning to develop the 8 gates, Due still had great knowledge of anatomy, explaining which exercises would be good for specific muscles, something not found in books of this era. This proved that Due had been studying for many years and was combining his knowledge for use in training. After Minato created a mental list of what he should start practicing after a 40-minute conversation with Due, he was genuinely pleased and eager to begin his new training. You are very promising, Due, Minato said sincerely, after listening to Due's words. No matter what others say, it may not seem much from a child, but I know there's great potential in you.
Your dedication and strength are evident, and I believe you will prove them all wrong.
Minato's words deeply touched Due's heart. For so long he had struggled alone, his only company being the determination and hope that burned within him. To hear a young man, one he had just met, recognize and validate his journey was more than he could have hoped for. Tears began to form in Due's eyes, a mixture of emotions overflowing. He quickly wiped them away, a bright and grateful smile appearing on his face. Young man, your words mean more to me than you can imagine.
Many see me just as a foolish dreamer, a ninja who chose the hardest path with no chance of success.
But you saw the youth within me.
Thank you. Due took a deep breath. I promise, young Minato, I won't disappoint you.
I will continue training, improving, and one day, I will show everyone the true power of taijutsu, he said with tears.
Minato nodded, impressed with this character and his personality. I believe in you, Due. And I'm looking forward to training and learning together. After an enriching conversation and plans made for future training, Minato prepared to bid farewell to Might Due. It was great talking to you, Due. I'm looking forward to our training, said Minato, extending his hand in a gesture of friendship. Due, with a radiant smile and eyes full of determination, firmly shook Minato's hand. Likewise, Minato.
I'll prepare a training that will challenge us both.
Until then, keep striving. With a nod, Minato turned and left.
He walked through the quiet streets of the village, his next destination being the village market, where he intended to buy the chakra ink necessary for producing explosive tags. Minato entered a district in the center of the village, where the main clans were. He went to the shops that provided military equipment for ninjas and found a store specializing in seals, stocked with Uzumaki equipment from their village to the east of the Land of Fire, likely managed by the Senju family. Upon arriving at the store, Minato entered, his eyes immediately searching for the specialized ink he needed. He was greeted by the merchant, a knowledgeable man who recognized Minato as a young but serious customer.
Good morning, young man.
What brings you here? Asked the merchant with a friendly smile, seeing the young man entering the store, which was unusual. I'm here to buy intermediate chakra ink, Minato replied, briefly explaining his project to produce explosive tags.
The merchant, hearing the request, frowned slightly. Chakra ink? My young man, that's not a common commodity.
It's powerful and dangerous in the wrong hands. It's not something for children, he replied, clearly hesitant to sell such an item to someone so young. Minato felt a bit frustrated with the idea of not being able to purchase, understanding why they wouldn't sell it to a child, but he would have to find another way. Before he could attempt to insist, the door of the store opened, and an imposing figure entered.
It was Tsunade Senju.
Tsunade, noticing Minato, the young friend of her daughter, asked, "What are you doing here, brat?" her voice carrying a natural authority.
Tsunade. Minato murmured. Hello, Princess Tsunade.
This young man wants to buy chakra ink, but I. The merchant began to speak before being interrupted by Tsunade.
Chakra ink? And what do you plan to do with it, Minato? Tsunade asked, turning to the young shinobi with an inquisitive look.
I need it to create intermediate seals I've been studying from the book I received from Mito last year. I'm almost ready to develop them.
Minato was honest, this was an important step for him when it comes to Fuinjutsu. You're at the intermediate level? Kid, you're a genius even in this area.
Tsunade muttered, her daughter was almost reaching the threshold of intermediate and specialist level. But seeing Minato learning and reaching this level at his age without the resources the Senju family provides Tsuna is truly fantastic for a boy without a clan.
Tsunade, after listening attentively, nodded. Well, it seems you really need this.
And I know you're not an ordinary boy, Minato. She turned to the merchant.
I will buy the ink for him.
I'm sure the brat here can handle it.
The merchant, though still hesitant, couldn't argue with the Senju. He prepared the chakra ink, which Tsunade paid for without hesitation.
Minato, still stunned by the unexpected intervention and support, only managed to stammer a thank you.
Thank you, Tsunade Senju. I promise I will be careful. Tsunade just smiled, a glint of approval in her eyes. I'll be watching you, Minato.
Make good use of it and continue growing and don't let my daughter down. Although Minato was a bit wary of her final words, he smiled and left the store to return to the training site. He then headed to the training site, eager to start working on his explosive tags. Sending a clone to school, as usual, Minato focused entirely on his new task. As a first test, he made a clone and began analyzing it after taking a bit of ink sufficient for a few seals and moving away from the site. The process was meticulous and demanding, each movement precise and calculated. Finally, after 10 minutes of focused work, Minato's clone completed the seal and raised it with a triumphant smile. I did it, the clone exclaimed, a sense of accomplishment filling it. However, the celebration was brief. The seal, without any explanation, caught fire, and the clone was abruptly engulfed in an explosion, disappearing instantly in a cloud of smoke and debris created in the ground.
Minato just stood there, watching the clone being destroyed after celebrating, not knowing what to say about it. Well, it seems this won't be easy. I hope Kushina can help me. Minato just murmured, while the explosion still echoed through the forest. Chapter 46, 4th Year 09. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 35. It was another day over Konoha. Minato was still immersed in his latest project. A clone of Minato was sitting in the center of the training field, surrounded by scrolls, chakra inks, and an expression of intense concentration. He was about to try creating a new bomb seal, a task that had already proven to be more challenging and dangerous than Minato had initially foreseen. The clone picked up a brush, carefully dipped it in the chakra ink, and began drawing the seal on a scroll using his chakra in the brush. Every movement was precise, each line drawn with utmost attention. After a few minutes of meticulous work, the seal was complete. "Will it work this time?" murmured the clone to himself, stepping back a bit, ready to run at any sign of danger. Even for a clone, it wasn't pleasant being caught in an explosion. He activated the seal, eagerly waiting to see the result of this seal. For a brief moment, nothing happened, and the clone began to approach, thinking maybe he had failed at something. But, the next instant, the seal began to spark and, without warning, exploded into a cloud of smoke and flames. Minato's clone was engulfed by the explosion, disappearing instantly, while a shockwave swept across the training field. Nearby trees shook with the impact, and a small hole formed in the ground where the scroll had been placed. On the other side of the field, the original Minato watched, absorbing the memories of the clone. He frowned, thoughtful. "It's still not it, this is getting difficult," he said out loud. "I see that, Databane. Ha 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 ha." Another voice entered Minato's ear, but he didn't seem to care, as this woman had been mocking him all afternoon. Behind him was Kushina Uzumaki, accompanied by Tsuna and Makoto. Kushina, with her flaming red hair, was laughing loudly, almost breathless, as she watched the remnants of the explosions caused by Minato's clones. With each new explosion during his attempts, her laughter turned against Minato as if it were the funniest thing in the world, seeing the clones of the blonde boy scared. Tsuna, with a gentle smile on her face, watched the scene with amusement too. She knew well the effort and seriousness of Minato in his training and projects, but she couldn't help finding the situation a bit comical, as she saw Minato failing all the time while he kept placing more clones to continue trying. Makoto, usually more reserved, allowed a small smile to appear on her lips. The sight of Minato's clones striving tirelessly, despite the explosive results, was undeniably funny. "Minato, did you see that?" Kushina exclaimed between laughs, pointing to one of the places where a clone had just been involved in the explosion. "Your clones are as determined as you, but it seems they still have a long way to go." "Yes, it seems so," Minato replied with a smile, joining in the laughter. He didn't mind the mistakes, as long as he kept improving. "Each explosion teaches me something new. Eventually, I'll get it right," he thought to himself, and remembering something, he turned to Kushina, whose laughter was beginning to subside, and said, "Kushina, you're the best in Fuinjutsu among us and have mastery over the explosive seal, don't you? Can you help me with this?" Kushina, still smiling, looked at Minato with a playful expression. "Of course, Minato. Looks like you could really use the help of an expert," she replied, still trying to contain her laughter. She extended her hand with the shadow clone seal. Quickly she used the jutsu, summoning several clones. "These clones can help you," said Kushina. Kushina's clones approached the place where Minato's clones were working scattered around the training field. They quickly examined the area, observing the scrolls, the partially completed seals, and the traces of the previous explosions. Minato watched, grateful for the help. He knew that Kushina's experience with Fuinjutsu would be invaluable for his success. As Kushina's clones, or Kushiclones, took charge, instructing Minato's Mina clones, the scene became somewhat comical. One of the Kushiclones, annoyed with Mianto's error in his scroll, slapped the clone, making it disappear. Minato turned to look at Kushina with a raised eyebrow. "Sorry about that, my clones sometimes come with a difficult personality to handle," she commented timidly.
Turning his attention back to the field, Minato saw a Kushina clone with almost maternal patience, showing a Mina clone how to draw a complicated seal. No, you have to be more precise on this curve. And be careful with the amount of chakra, the Kusha clone instructed. The Mina clone, focused and a bit tense, tried to follow the instructions but was clearly struggling. Like this, he asked, showing the seal. Before the Kusha clone could respond, the paper began to alarmingly spark. No, yelled the Kusha clone, realizing something was wrong and the paper was going to explode. You put too much chakra. Run. The expression of the Mina clone changed from concentration to panic in a fraction of a second. What? But I only. He barely had time to finish the sentence. Suddenly, the seal exploded with surprising force, engulfing both clones in a cloud of smoke and debris. The Kusha clone was still screaming in despair with a comical expression of terror on its face as it was caught in the explosion. On the other side of the field, Minato, Kushina, Suna, and Makoto watched the scene with a mix of shock and muffled laughter. Kushina covered her mouth with her hand, trying to contain her laughter. Ah, my clones. They are so dramatic. Suna shook her head, still smiling. Well, that's one way to learn, I suppose. Makoto, with an ironic smile, added, at least they are being explosively efficient. Minato, although a bit worried about the safety of his clones, couldn't help but laugh at the situation. I guess we have a lot of work ahead, he said. The clones continued to play their role. You have to be more subtle here, advised another Kusha clone, pointing to a part of the seal. Remember, Fuinjutsu was about precision and chakra control. The Mina clone tried to do so, but for a millisecond his chakra became unstable. I'm almost there. The clone couldn't finish the sentence. The seal began to glow intensely, a clear sign of too much chakra again. Wait, no, shouted the Kusha clone, realizing the error too late. Boom! After another explosive training session with the clones, Tsuna and Makoto had already left while only Minato and Kushina were still training. Towards the end of the afternoon, Kushina approached Minato, somewhat exasperated without her previous laughter. Minato, you know that every time one of my clones is caught in an explosion, I feel all their desperation, right? She exuded a mix of frustration and amusement. You need to get this right soon, or I'll start thinking you're doing this on purpose just to see me scream. And I have to go now, Mito-sama is waiting for me. Minato gave an apologetic smile. I'll try harder to work on this. And I really appreciate the help from your clones. They are, well, explosive in more than one sense. The next day, at the academy, there was an atmosphere of expectation. It would be a day of practical lessons, and Minato was present without clones. After Professor Fuma asked everyone to do chakra control exercises, during sparring, Minato faced Akuma Uchiha again. And even with the 9-year-old boy's activated Sharingan, Minato emerged victorious to the boy's frustration. Besides, Minato watched with admiration and a bit of surprise how Kushina dealt with those who spoke ill of her. Whenever someone mocked her red hair or made some unpleasant comment, Kushina responded with strength and skill, quickly making them regret their words. These demonstrations of strength and determination began to give rise to the nickname Red Hot-Blooded Habanero in the classroom, as he remembered from the anime. The Red Hot-Blooded Habanero was worse than Suna. Minato sighed. He could beat that boy for this, but it would be childish of him to hit children for acting like children, and Kushina could easily handle them all. Since the strongest in the class didn't seem to care much about her, apart from Minato, Suna, and Makoto. The next day, under a clear and sunny Konoha sky, Minato met with Might Due to begin their joint training. Due, surprised to see Minato, immediately questioned him, Minato, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at the academy? Minato smiled lightly before responding. Today, I sent a clone to school. I am the original here, because I wanted to train with you personally, he explained, his voice reflecting his determination. Due was visibly impressed by Minato's response. You sent a clone to the academy so you could train? That's incredible dedication, young man, exclaimed Due, his admiration for the boy growing. It's rare to see such a young ninja with such passion and seriousness for training. Minato, maintaining his resolute posture, looked directly at Due. Due, I would never miss a training session with you. You are even above the Hokage when it comes to the admiration I have for people from the village. Minato spoke sincerely. This man had to die to be recognized, and when he learns the 8 Gates technique, he could kill the Hokage in a life or death fight. Of course, he would die afterwards, but it doesn't take away the fact that his strength could be superior to a Kage. Minato's words had a profound impact on Due. He was used to being underestimated and seen as a second-level shinobi due to his inability to use jutsus. The sincere recognition and respect from Minato for his abilities and dedication to taijutsu touched his heart. "Minato, you honor me with your words," said Due, a glimmer of emotion in his tearful eyes. "I will do my best to teach you everything I know. Let's work together to push beyond our limits." As the training with Might Due began, Minato saw the perfect opportunity to offer something that could significantly benefit both of their training. He pulled out some weight seals from his bag, items that Due, given his limited financial conditions, couldn't afford. "I brought something that might help us," said Minato, extending the weight seals to Due. "I believe these can make our training even more effective." Due, surprised and a little confused, took the weight seals. "Minato, these are weight seals? But how? They are expensive and..." Minato interrupted with a calm smile. "I know they can be costly, but I want our training to be the best it can be. And I thought you could use some. This is unexpected, but thank you, I will surely make good use of them. Together, our youth will shine," Due exclaimed. With that, they began their training. Due guided Minato through a series of rigorous exercises, focusing on strength, speed, and endurance. Minato followed each instruction attentively, absorbing the knowledge and experience of Due, which he recognized was far better than his previous training. Throughout the day, as they sweated and challenged each other under the hot sun on that wasteland where Minato first met Due, a true camaraderie developed between them. Due saw in Minato a kindred spirit, a young shinobi who shared his passion for taijutsu and personal improvement. When the training came to an end, both were exhausted but satisfied. They knew this was just the beginning of a challenging and rewarding journey. Minato left the training field thinking about the possibilities with his own physical techniques that he would develop in the future, and with even greater respect for Due, recognizing that when it comes to taijutsu, there is no one in the world like him. Chapter 47, 4th Year 10. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 35. In the weeks that followed, Minato dedicated himself intensely to training with Might Due and to the explosive seal with some clones of Kushina, but Minato was surprised by Due's training, yielding results a few weeks later. "Minato, what are you?" Due commented, seeing the boy's evolution in front of him, becoming faster and stronger just with his physique. Minato was about to make an excuse to avoid saying that he had an alien body, which is why his evolution was so remarkable, but before he could make an excuse, as much as he hated lying to Due, he was interrupted by him. "Minato, I know. Your youth burns brighter than anything. I have never seen a talent like yours. Your potential is much higher than mine. How happy I am to pass on the teachings of my youth to a genius." Due began to cry. Minato was speechless at Due's personality. After that, they returned to training and more time passed in Konoha. The combination of rigorous physical training with Due and in-depth study of Fuinjutsu created a perfect balance for Minato. As he honed his strength, speed, and endurance, he also focused on refining his skills with explosive seals, getting closer to mastering the seal. However, for the students lives in Konoha, it was peaceful and carefree as the children grew stronger, but for the adults and the village's higher-ups, the scenario was one of contrast, with attacks on the border or even within the Land of Fire. Missions were failing due to looting by other ninjas from major nations. The world was in chaos, reaching the limit of what was known in recent years as a time of peace. On a quiet night on the eastern border of the Land of Fire, near the Uzumaki village, a patrol of shinobis traveled the borders as any other day. With the increase in hostilities between the major nations, they maintained constant vigilance. It was a routine task, intended to ensure security and peace within the country's borders, founded over 30 years ago. However, this particular night was about to become a significant turning point in the history of the ninja world. The Konoha shinobis, patrolling the borders, quickly went into combat mode, facing the sudden threat. "We're under attack.
Call for reinforcements, shouted a Chunin, but before he could react properly, a precisely thrown kunai hit his neck, silencing him instantly. The environment in the forest became chaotic.
The trees in the darkness of the night provided perfect cover for ambushes.
The Konoha ninjas, though caught by surprise, showed resilience and skill in quickly responding to the attack.
"Regroup, all patrols, we are under attack," ordered a Jonin team leader, skillfully dodging the kunais coming in his direction. He moved with impressive agility, avoiding lethal blows while coordinating his team. The Kirigakure ninjas spared no strength. An enemy Jonin appeared and quickly moved his hand with dragon, tiger, rabbit, snake, goat seals.
Suiton, Suoriuden no Jutsu.
Concentrating chakra in his hands, he formed a water dragon from the river behind him, launching it forcefully towards the Konoha shinobis. The serpentine figure of water advanced with a roar, its undulating and powerful form threatening to engulf the defenders. The Konoha shinobis, recognizing the need for a quick response, counterattacked.
Doton, Doriahiki.
He took the lead in the fight, with a quick hand movement making tiger, snake, ram. He created an earth wall with the ground rising in front of him for protection against water attacks. Crack, the water dragon collided with the wall but did not break through. Taking advantage of the confusion, another Konoha ninja, specialists in other earth jutsus, quickly created a protective earth barrier to shelter some of the less experienced companions. The barrier rose from the ground, providing solid defense against the continuous attacks of the enemies.
12 Konoha ninjas quickly jumped over the barrier for a counterattack, moving their hands in sync: snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger.
Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Multiple fireballs were launched against the Kirigakure ninjas in the trees, illuminating the entire landscape in front of them. The Kiri ninjas didn't lag behind, creating multiple group seals with a quick response: tiger, ox, ram.
Suiton, Mizurapa. Water burst from the ninjas' mouths towards the flames.
Fire and water battled each other, heating the water and creating a curtain of steam covering the entire fight area. The clash intensified, with the ninjas from both sides displaying their skills and techniques. Kunais and shurikens sliced through the air with some steam still lingering, while jutsus of various natures were launched in an attempt to overcome the opponent amidst explosions with paper bombs. The Konoha shinobis, although initially taken by surprise, fought with fierce determination, defending their land against the unexpected invasion. The battle on the eastern border of the Land of Fire became an example of the intensity and brutality that would mark this new phase of the next ninja war.
Despite the resistance and skill of Konoha's defenders, the tide of the battle changed drastically with the arrival of massive reinforcement from Kirigakure. Suddenly, a wave of Kiri ninjas, armed and ready for battle, emerged from the shadows of the night. They attacked with a ferocity and efficiency that caught the already exhausted Konoha shinobis off guard. Kunais and shurikens cut through the air, while devastating jutsus were launched in rapid succession. "We are outnumbered and outpowered," shouted one of the Konoha team leaders, realizing the gravity of the situation. "We need to send a report to Konoha immediately." With the battle turning against them, the Konoha shinobis regrouped, struggling to maintain a defensive line while one of them, an agile and determined ninja, was entrusted with a crucial mission: to carry a scroll with information about the attack to Konoha, a mission classified as S-level due to its importance and danger.
"Take this to Konoha, quickly," the leader ordered, handing the scroll to the chosen ninja.
"Inform the Hokage about the attack. Do not fail."
The ninja nodded, understanding the gravity of the task, and disappeared into the night, moving with astonishing speed, avoiding combat while focusing on his critical mission.
Meanwhile, the Konoha shinobis, despite fighting bravely, were quickly overwhelmed by the overwhelming force of the enemy. One after another, they fell under the relentless attack of the Kiri ninjas. The forest, once a place of vigil and protection, became a brutal battlefield, witnessing the loss of many valiant shinobis.
As the battle unfolded on the borders of Konoha, a similar and equally intense conflict occurred on the northern border of the Cloud Village. This attack, however, had a unique feature: the presence of the Raikage himself, the leader of the hidden Cloud Village, commanding the defense of his village. The Cloud Village, known for its strong shinobis skilled in hand-to-hand combat, caught the Konoha ninjas on the northern border by surprise with a normal attack to dominate and gain ground in the Land of Fire. The aggression was fierce and planned to cause maximum damage and destabilization.
Enemy attack.
A Konoha Jonin shouted before his head separated from his neck after the Raikage passed by him.
It's the Raikage. We are under attack by the Raikage.
Use jutsus to stop his advance.
The leader shouted. 10 ninjas quickly prepared with seals, snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger.
Katan, Hosenka no Jutsu. Multiple small fireballs were continuously launched against the Raikage, but this seemed to have no effect against his lightning armor. The attacks were quickly repelled, and before they realized it, the Raikage was upon them, killing them all. Some Konoha ninjas tried to escape to pass the information to Konoha and the Hokage, but Cloud Village ninjas caught up with them in far superior numbers, and all were killed without being able to inform Konoha about this attack. The battle at the northern border was marked by a total loss that Konoha would only discover due to the lost contact with the border troops. A few days after the surprise attack on Konoha's borders, an urgent meeting was convened in the village. Under the leadership of the Hokage, the main ninjas and key figures of Konoha gathered to discuss the response and future security measures. The meeting included the presence of Jiraiya, Tsunade, Orochimaru, Tsukumo Hatake, and other renowned shinobis, each bringing their expertise and experience. We were attacked by Kiri in the eastern area, and our northern border teams disappeared. Intelligence indicates that it was Kumo, unfortunately much later than the other news. Hiruzen spoke to everyone gathered. The Hokage began the meeting by highlighting the seriousness of the situation and the need for a robust strategy to ensure the village's security. He expressed his concern about the recent wave of attacks and the possible escalation of tensions among the major shinobi nations. Jiraiya took the floor, his serious expression reflecting the gravity of the situation. Intelligence reports indicate that the Stone Country, in alliance with the Wind Country, invaded the Rain Village. They seem to be moving toward our borders. One of the ninjas present, aware of the reputation of the Stone Country's leader, commented, "I doubt that Hanzo, the salamander, will let this happen without resistance. He is known as the most powerful ninja alive." Tsunade, with a worried expression, emphasized the need for medical preparation. "We need to reinforce our medical teams and train more ninjas in this specialty. The war will bring casualties, and we need to be ready to care for them." Tsukumo Hatake, known for his wisdom and strategy, added, "It is also vital to strengthen our defenses and develop tactics against enemy espionage. We cannot underestimate the cunning of our adversaries." After intense debate and considerations from all present, the Hokage concluded the meeting. "I thank everyone for their contributions. The strength and unity of Konoha will be crucial in these challenging times. We need to be prepared to enter war against all nations, if necessary." He looked at each of them, his determination clear in his words. "We will call upon the Uzumaki as our allies. Together, we will face these challenges and protect our village and our people." Turning to Jiraiya, he continued, "Jiraiya, you will be responsible for establishing communication with the Uzumaki village. We need their expertise in sealing techniques and combat capabilities to strengthen our front lines." Jiraiya nodded, his serious expression indicating the gravity of his new mission. "Understood, Hokage-sama. I will make immediate contact and secure their alliance." Hiruzen then turned to Tsunade and Orochimaru. "You two are tasked with strengthening our defenses on the west side of the country. We need you in the Rain Village to prevent a joint attack from two villages at the same time against the Land of Fire." Tsunade and Orochimaru nodded. Finally, the Hokage addressed Tsukumo Hatake. "Your task is to reinforce our security on the northern borders. I will send Danzo's force to the east, thus protecting all sides of the country." The declaration of war by Konoha marked the beginning of a tumultuous period in the shinobi world. The village was preparing for a conflict that would test its strength, strategies, and alliances. As tensions rose, every Konoha shinobi knew they were about to enter one of the most challenging periods in their history. The war would demand sacrifices, but it was also an opportunity for Konoha to demonstrate its strength and resilience in the face of unprecedented adversity. The day after the decision to enter the war, the atmosphere in Konoha was palpably tense. News of the village's imminent involvement in the Second Ninja War had spread rapidly, creating a mix of anxiety and fear among the inhabitants and shinobis. In the Hokage's office, Hiruzen Sarutobi, surrounded by his loyal disciples Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru, opened a critical discussion about the roles they would play in the impending war.
The scenario was grim, with the threat of conflict looming over Konoha.
We are facing an unprecedented challenge, Hiruzen began, his voice reflecting the seriousness of the situation.
And, unfortunately, we will need our young shinobis, including those in the academy, to prepare for combat sooner than we had hoped.
Tsunade, known for her temperament, reacted immediately, her face marked by concern.
Sensei, you can't be serious. They are just children.
My daughter, she's not ready to face the reality of a war, she protested, her voice trembling with emotion.
Hiruzen looked at Tsunade with understanding but maintained his firm tone. I understand your concerns, Tsunade. But war does not distinguish by age.
It's a harsh reality, but everyone must be ready to defend our village. Orochimaru intervened with his calm and controlled tone. While I share Tsunade's concerns, Hiruzen is correct. We must utilize all available resources, including our young talents. Jiraiya, with his usual seriousness mixed with a hint of optimism, added, I will ensure that any youngster under my tutelage is more than prepared for the challenges to come.
In fact, I already have plans to train Minato Namikaze. Orochimaru, with a glint of interest in his eyes, commented, Minato, HM? The top talent from the elite program?
I was thinking of taking him as my student. Jiraiya, quickly, retorted, Minato is already under my guidance, Orochimaru. He has a potential that I intend to develop to the fullest. Hiruzen, seeking to maintain order in the conversation, concluded, then it's decided. Jiraiya, you will train Minato.
Tsunade, you will take care of the medical preparation and supervision of the young shinobis. And Orochimaru, choose the students you deem most fit for your style of training.
I will take my daughter with me.
That's non-negotiable, Tsunade said firmly, and Hiruzen agreed.
I will let the children complete this year and will give them until the middle of next year to prepare. After that we may have to dispatch them to war if necessary, the third Hokage said, and everyone nodded in agreement at the end. The Hokage observed the dynamics among his disciples, who left to strengthen the border and alliances according to their missions assigned the previous day in the meeting.
Konoha was finally entering the war and it would be against all nations simultaneously. Chapter 48, 4th Year 11. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 35. Minato, walking towards school, noticed the palpable tension among the inhabitants of Konoha.
The streets were filled with whispers and worries about the impending war.
Have you heard?
We're going into war, a merchant asked, his voice trembling. Don't worry, the Hokage will protect us, replied an old man, trying to instill some confidence in the anxiety-laden air. Minato, absorbing the conversations around him, felt a weight in his heart. The war has really started. He thought, worried about what the future might bring. Despite having achieved extraordinary abilities, like his body of light and progress in his training, Minato knew he still had a long way to go, especially in dealing with a real conflict. He proceeded to the academy and upon entering the classroom, Minato greeted his classmates, trying to maintain normality amidst the chaos spreading through the village.
Hello Minato. Shikaku Nara responded, his voice a mix of laziness and concern.
Minato, Inoichi Yamanaka greeted him, his expression calm, but his eyes revealing underlying restlessness.
Good morning, Minato. Do you want a cookie? Choza Akimichi offered, trying to keep lightness amidst the growing tension.
No, thank you, Minato replied, appreciating Choza's friendly gesture. As Minato continued greeting other classmates, a sudden commotion caught his attention. He saw a boy roll on the ground before falling dazed and immediately knew who was behind it.
Hope you remember this. Don't mock me, Databane.
Kushina exclaimed, her voice loud and full of vigor echoing through the room.
Minato, with a slight smile on his face, approached her. Hello Kushina, he said. Hello Minato.
She smiled back, contradicting her expression until now as she chided her classmates.
Suna, Makoto.
Minato greeted the rest of his friends.
Hello. Minato, good morning.
Sitting in his place, conversations about the war soon filled the topics among the children.
The war has started, Suna commented at the table next to Kushina. I heard we're going to be sent to war. Makoto remarked. Kushina was nervous. We can expect anything in the coming months. Minato spoke in a serious tone. At that moment, Professor Fuma entered the room.
Hello, children. Well, I could start the day normally, but I know you've been asking me this, but Konoha has declared it will go to war against the other villages, he said, and the room burst into exclamations.
Are we going to participate too?
A student asked a bit fearfully. After all, he was still a child. I'd love to participate and kill other enemy ninjas,
said another boy, one of the Uchihas in the room.
Silence. The teacher shouted amid the murmurs to bring some order.
Yes, we are at war. For now, we don't know anything, but this year our class will continue as usual, and by the Hokage's order, we will advance your learning.
We will start advanced chakra control training. He referred to exercises like walking on trees and water.
Well, I've already been through this,
so I can keep sending clones until the teachers teach jutsus,
Minato thought.
The class continued, but the fact of the war weighed on everyone. No one really paid attention to the lesson. In the afternoon, Professor Fuma taught how to practice the exercises.
Minato on his first attempt had already climbed up the tree. Why am I surprised?
The teacher murmured to the number 1 student. It wasn't just him. Suna and Kushina also showed chakra mastery, as she already had a natural and refined control over her own chakras. The next day, after class, Minato headed to his training with Might Due, determined to divide his time efficiently. While his original body dedicated itself to enhancing his power of light and to the demanding physical training with Due, he kept a clone at the academy to participate in the chakra control practices. Simultaneously, 28 clones were engaged in developing explosive seals, with guidance from some of Kushina's clones. The routine was always intense, but Minato adapted well to the challenge, skillfully balancing his responsibilities in training. He felt that with each day he was getting closer to mastering his abilities, a crucial preparation for the times of war that were approaching. A week later, an impressive scene unfolded on the main street of Konoha. A large crowd had gathered, creating a sea of curious and worried faces. They watched a historic scene. Thousands of Konoha ninjas, dressed in their battle uniforms, marched towards the village gates to represent the village to their villagers, ready to join the war effort.
On a high rooftop, 4 children looked on with curiosity. Minato watched the scene with a mix of admiration and sobriety.
He saw experienced ninjas, many of whom he only knew by name or reputation in recent years. He knew that many of them would not return, as this was the weight of the reality of ninja war.
Kushina, with a distant look, shared information she had received a few days ago.
Mito-sama told me that our clan, the Uzumakis, will join Konoha in the fight against Kiri in the east of the Country of Fire, she revealed, her voice carrying a mix of pride and apprehension. Makoto, with her usually calm expression, added, most of the Uchihas, including my father, have been summoned to the front in the north. It seems that the situation there is quite tense. My mother and the other Hokage students are going to the Country of Rain. They said that the Village of Stone and the Village of Wind have formed an alliance and are advancing there, Suna commented.
The Country of Rain is under the command of Hanzo, isn't it? He is known as Salamander, an extremely powerful ninja. Makoto raised an eyebrow.
Yes, it's true, Suna confirmed.
It's a dangerous situation.
I heard that the Village of Rain is being crushed between the 2 great nations.
Kushina, looking thoughtful, questioned, and the Hokage, is he going to the front line too? Suna shook her head.
From what my mother said, he plans to stay in Konoha to coordinate the village's defense and strategy. But he is ready to move to any battlefront that needs his presence.
Kushina sighed, a look of determination in her eyes.
If I go to war, I want to go to the east with the Uzumakis, Kushina murmured, and Minato felt a bit sorry for the girl. He knew she would never leave the village again. Even before becoming a Jinchuriki, Konoha would not allow it. As they talked, the atmosphere in the village was charged with tension and emotion. Groups of ninjas passed through the streets, their expressions serious and determined, reflecting the gravity of the situation. The residents of Konoha clustered along the streets, waving and shouting words of encouragement.
You are the pride of Konoha.
Win for us, a merchant shouted. Show them the power of Konoha, echoed the voice of a mother, holding her young son's hand firmly, who looked with large, admiring eyes at the ninjas.
Minato watched the scene, feeling the weight of the conflict in the village.
This war, it's going to change a lot of things for all of us, he murmured, more to himself than to the others.
Kushina nodded, her expression serious. We will also have a role to play.
I don't know when, but I feel our time is coming, Databane. Suna, with a worried look, added, I just hope everyone comes back safely.
War, it spares no one.
Makoto, usually reserved, spoke in a low voice, let's train more. We need to be ready for anything. As they conversed, various groups of ninjas passed through the streets while people shouted encouraging things to them, that Konoha would get through this crisis and defeat all enemies. Minato and the girls saw many ninjas passing by them too on the rooftops. Anyway, Makoto is right, we need to get stronger, war is no joke, especially when you're a ninja, he said, and the girls agreed. As the weeks passed, the village of Konoha was in constant motion, with more and more ninjas being sent to the front lines. Each day, the situation seemed to grow more serious, and the rumors circulating among the residents only increased the tension in the village. Minato, aware of the gravity of the situation, intensified his training with Might Due, although he knew that this routine could soon be interrupted. Due, despite being a genin, had not yet been called to war. However, Minato could feel that this would change soon.
Due, do you think you'll be called to the war soon? Minato asked during one of their training sessions.
Due, always optimistic, replied with a smile.
Whatever the call, I'll be ready. But until then, let's continue our training and get stronger with our power of youth.
After a month since the children had been training exercises of walking on trees and water, Professor Fuma finally decided to put the class into the next stage.
Professor Fuma entered the classroom pushing a cart full of rolled-up scrolls.
His eyes scanned the excited class, and with a smile, he announced, Today is a special day, students.
We will start training with C-rank jutsus.
Some of you already have knowledge in jutsus taught by your clans. However, after consulting your parents, I have selected jutsus that you have not yet learned. The students buzzed with excitement, especially those who had never learned jutsus before. Professor Fuma began distributing the scrolls, with some students receiving 2 and notably, Minato receiving 3.
A student, with a look of confusion, asked, Professor Fuma, why did some of us receive 2 scrolls and others just 1? And why does Minato have 3?
Professor Fuma, patiently, replied, Each of you received scrolls based on the number of elements with which you have an affinity. Some of you have an affinity with 2 elements and therefore received 2 scrolls. Minato, with his exceptional affinity in 3 elements, received 3 corresponding scrolls. The classroom was filled with murmurs of admiration and surprise as the students contemplated the 3 scrolls in front of Minato.
3 elements, huh?
Minato always surprising us, commented a student, looking at him with a mix of respect and curiosity.
Shikaku Nara, always inclined to laziness, yawned and commented, how troublesome, now everyone will want to compete with Minato.
He leaned back in his chair, observing the room with an uninterested look.
In the corner, Akuma Uchiha murmured with a tone of envy, damn Minato, his eyes fixed on his classmates' scrolls.
Minato nodded humbly, preferring not to elaborate on the subject. He opened and looked at the scrolls in his hand, his interest clearly piqued.
Professor Fuma spoke up again at that moment.
Remember, these scrolls are confidential and exclusive to the training of each of you. Do not share them and, above all, take good care of them. He said before the bell signaling the end of the class for that day began to ring.
Minato, holding his 3 scrolls, felt more motivated than ever.
He stood up, ready to leave the room and head straight to the training field. Finally, something really interesting, he thought, finally going with the idea of learning to perform elemental jutsus.
You're going to start practicing right now, aren't you, Minato? Suna asked, leaving the room at his side.
Of course, I'm not going to waste any time, replied Minato, his voice full of determination.
Chapter 49, 4th Year 12. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 35.
Before the day ended in Konoha, Minato firmly carried the scrolls of rank C jutsus in his arms and headed to his training field, arriving at the location without interruptions. He quickly opened the scrolls with the 3 elemental jutsus he received, one for each of the wind, fire, and lightning elements. Scroll 1 Wind Jutsu Futon, Reppuken, Wind Blade. This jutsu creates a sharp blade of air that can be launched towards a target.
Luffy focused on memorizing the necessary hand seals: tiger, ox, rabbit, and bird.
Scroll 2 Fire Jutsu, Keton.
Hozenka no Jutsu, Phoenix Flower Technique. This jutsu allows the user to create multiple small fireballs, shooting them towards the opponent. Minato looked at the hand seals: snake, tiger, monkey, boar, horse, and tiger.
Scroll 3 Lightning Jutsu Raiton, Jabashi, Electric Strike. This jutsu is used to generate an electrical discharge that can be directed to a specific target or area at a short distance.
Minato learned the hand seals: tiger, rabbit, and ox.
Minato looked at the 3 jutsus excitedly, but before he could start practicing, even as a child, he knew he needed to perform nature transformation, especially with the wind jutsus, which were the hardest to learn. Minato quickly read each nature transformation in each of the elements in the introduction of the scrolls and created 90 clones to train all of them quickly, 30 for each clone.
It took 2 hours of training to become good enough to execute a rank C jutsu in one of them. Minato was exhausted, but he succeeded with the fire element.
Determined and focused, he picked up the fire scroll, which was the element he found easiest to perform nature transformation, to try executing his first jutsus.
Excited by the initial success, Minato proceeded to the fire jutsu, Katan, Hozenka no Jutsu, Phoenix Flower Technique.
Katan, Hozenka no Jutsu. Executing the hand seal snake, tiger, monkey, boar, horse, and tiger, he began to practice. At first, the fireballs were small and uncontrolled.
However, with practice and concentration on the flow of his chakra, Minato quickly improved.
His fireballs became larger, more numerous, and precise, forming an impressive pyrotechnic spectacle. Minato's training showed that he had a natural talent for nature jutsus, which also surprised him with the ease with which he learned the jutsu at first. It was already night while Naruto tried not to burn his mouth with each jutsu launched, illuminating his training area.
"I think that's good enough, I should head back," Minato murmured.
He was exhausted, his chakra pool was at its limit after he made multiple clones, still using the remainder to make at least 30 attempts at the rank C jutsu. Minato returned to the center of Konoha while reflecting on his newly developed abilities in elemental jutsus. He couldn't help but feel surprised and, in a way, impressed with his own talent in this area. "It's incredible how quickly I get the hang of these jutsus," he thought, feeling a mix of pride and amazement. "It seems I have a natural affinity with elements, perhaps even more than with other aspects of ninjutsu." After Minato returned to the orphanage and explained his situation to Madame Garite, he went to rest and woke up for another day just sending clones to school. Over the following weeks, Minato dedicated himself intensely to the training of his new elemental jutsus. While most of the children in the class were focusing on nature transformation, Minato, with a combination of natural talent and a potion of hard work plus clones, advanced in mastering his techniques with impressive speed. Every day in the training field was an opportunity for Minato to perfect his skills. He started with the Katan, Hozenka no Jutsu. Minato approached it with dedication and enthusiasm. He trained daily, honing his ability to create multiple fireballs, each hitting its target with remarkable precision and even learning to hide thrown weapons like kunais and shurikens within the flames. Next, Minato focused on Futon, Repusho, a wind jutsu that allowed him to create gusts of air capable of destabilizing his opponents. With fluid and precise movements, he learned to control the intensity and direction of the wind, adapting the jutsu for various situations. Despite the wind element being the most difficult to train, it was the second jutsu that Minato mastered. Finally, Minato turned his attention to Raiton, Jabashi, a complex ability that allowed for generating electrical discharges. This technique was particularly challenging, requiring a delicate balance between power and control. However, for Minato, each challenge was an opportunity for growth. He worked tirelessly, adjusting his chakra flow to achieve the desired level of electrical intensity. By the end of these weeks, Minato had not only mastered these 3 jutsus and refined them as he wanted, but he also began experimenting with combinations and variations, seeking ways to integrate them more effectively in combat. His peers and teachers were once again impressed with his progress in a new area, many acknowledging that the young shinobi was becoming an unreachable talent in elemental jutsus. It was in this context of continuous progress and determination that Minato found himself in a training duel with Tsuna today.
As the sun painted Konoha's blue sky, on the training field, Minato and Tsuna were engaged in an intense training duel.
Tsuna, known for her prowess with water and earth jutsus, was preparing to defend against an imminent attack from Minato. Minato, focused and with a determined look, quickly began forming the hand seals for the Ketan, Hozenka no Jutsu, a technique that allowed launching multiple fireballs in rapid succession. He knew Tsuna was a skilled opponent and that he would need precision and speed to overcome her. Ketan, Hozenka no Jutsu, exclaimed Minato, launching a series of small but intense fireballs towards Tsuna. Tsuna, anticipating Minato's move, was already prepared with her counterattack. She quickly formed the hand seals for her water jutsu, aiming to create a defensive barrier that could absorb and extinguish the fire attack.
Suetun, Mizu no Tate.
Tsuna shouted, and a wall of water emerged in front of her, intercepting Minato's flames. The fireballs hit the water wall, creating clouds of steam as they were extinguished by the opposing element's force. Minato watched, impressed with Tsuna's effective defense. He knew that this exchange of jutsus was excellent practice for both, helping them to hone their skills and reflexes.
Good defense, Minato commented, as he prepared for his next move.
But it's not over yet.
Raitun, Jabashi.
Minato formed the hand seals and an electrical charge shot out from him directly into the water. Tsuna, seeing this, widened her eyes and before she could jump away from the water barrier, Minato's electric currents reached her jutsu.
Conducted by the water, the electric sparks hit Tsuna.
However, Tsuna's body turned into smoke and a log appeared in her place, with the 9-year-old girl now on the other side of the training field.
I had time to activate that jutsu. Tsuna sighed. Minato looked at Tsuna and initiated the attack with a sequence of kunais.
He threw the weapons with precision, but Tsuna, equally agile, easily dodged, using the substitution jutsu again to appear behind Minato. Minato felt the change in the air and quickly created a shadow clone to distract Tsuna, while he positioned himself for a counterattack. Tsuna, realizing the trick, launched Dotun Doriku Geishi this time, creating an earth wall that absorbed the impact of another subsequent Ketan, Hozenka no Jutsu from Minato. The fight continued at a frenetic pace. Minato, using his agility and techniques he had been training with Due, launched 12 clones at Tsuna, who responded in kind. The clones began to fight each other, but despite Minato always being superior thanks to his observation haki, the clones didn't have this, leading to a draw with all clones dissolving equally. Minato had trained a lot with Due and with his special body, he had an advantage, but fighting against a Senju who used the same taijutsu as the first Hokage was difficult for him to win without his original body's advantage. Seeing that the fight was without a winner, at a critical moment, Minato launched a futon, Ripusho, a powerful gust of wind, trying to unbalance Tsuna. However, Tsuna, with a quick movement, used Suetun Teppadama, firing water spheres that collided with the wind attack, creating a dispersed mist that temporarily obscured vision. Taking advantage of the confusion, Minato attempted a surprise attack, emerging from the mist with a series of shurikens.
Tsuna, however, was prepared and evaded the attack with a series of acrobatic evasive movements.
Minato threw a special kunai. Tsuna was going to defend, but saw what kind of kunais it was and quickly made a set of seals. Doton, Dangon no Jutsu. She opened her hand and a stone emerged from her palm against the kunai. As soon as they collided with each other, an explosion was created in the middle of the battlefield.
Boom, asterisk. Damn it, Minato, you managed to make the exploding tag?
Tsuna exclaimed a bit surprised. Exploding tags were quite expensive, especially in a period of the beginning of war. She knew Minato wouldn't throw one in this fight by chance, he must have created it for this.
You liked it?
That was one of my first successes.
Minato laughed.
Congratulations, she admitted without leaving her fighting stance. Minato looked at her and made 20 more shadow clones and Tsuna responded with the same amount. Both ran with their clones for a final clash. The fight continued with taijutsu. Despite Tsuna having her inheritance, it was not enough to finish Minato and his mastery of haki, making him finally win the fight.
I guess you won, she fell exhausted.
It was a great fight, are you okay?
Minato asked, breathing a bit tired while looking at the girl with some concern.
Hey, what do you think you are doing? My mother told me that I should punch boys who look too much at my body.
Suna growled and Minato raised his hands. It's not my intention, I just wanted to see if you were injured.
Minato scratched his head with that.
It's okay.
I guess, she said with a red face.
Suna got up a bit. They didn't have class today. Kushina was doing something with Mito, so Suna took advantage of this day to stay with Minato with some training.
Minato, Suna resumed speaking and Minato looked at her again, her tone still a bit accelerated by the recent activity. My great-grandmother mentioned that she would like to see you again.
She has only heard of you through me and Kush. Aina. How about coming to dinner at the Senju house tonight? Minato, still recovering and wiping the sweat from his forehead, looked at Suna with a mix of surprise. Really? It would be an honor.
I would be happy to accept the invitation.
Suna nodded with a smile, clearly pleased with Minato's response. Great. You still know where my house is, right? Then arrive around 8 p.m. Okay. He confirmed calmly.
Suna left after she and Minato exchanged a few more words, mainly discussing their viewpoints on the fight to help each other.
When evening arrived, dinner at the Senju house was a warm and welcoming experience as always for Minato.
Tsunade and Dan were not present, as they were on the war front, so the table was filled by Nawaki, Suna, Kushina, and the cheerful Mito. Despite Nawaki's teasing of Minato with Suna and even Kushina, causing the latter to punch him angrily, Minato took advantage of the evening to exchange some few ninjutsu tips with Mito. Minato was just a few details away from mastering the explosive seal, and even though Kushina was talented, Mito's teachings were unquestionable in this area. At the end of the dinner, Minato felt grateful for the opportunity and for the hospitality of the Senju and Mito Uzumaki. He left with a sense of having gained more knowledge, and it was always good to spend time with his friends and people he hadn't seen in a long time. As the months progressed, the class at the Konoha Academy was absorbed in learning new jutsus, while Minato devoted his time to focusing on the development of his fruit. They were approaching the end of the academic year, and everyone's progress was notable, with most children excelling. Minato, in particular, demonstrated exceptional ability, having mastered the taught jutsus with ease that surprised his classmates and teachers. During this time, Minato dedicated a significant portion of his time to physical training with Might Due. Focused on enhancing his strength, speed, and endurance, over the months, Minato showed impressive physical development, reaching a level of preparation that rivaled many jonins, despite his young age. Due, in turn, was constantly amazed by Minato's physical growth. Initially, Due saw Minato as a promising young student, but as the training progressed, he began to realize that Minato was a rare talent with some kind of special body. Even without using chakra, he was already so powerful. Minato's ability to absorb and apply the training exceeded all expectations, even making an experienced warrior like Due feel dazed, but always shouting with joy in the end with Minato's power of youth. Minato was not ashamed to train with Due despite everyone speaking poorly of him. He sometimes participated in training around the village on days when there were no classes. This progress of Minato was so notable that it began to attract the attention of other shinobis in the village who remained in the village. They observed, intrigued, this young boy who, even before turning 10 years old, exhibited a physical and technical preparation that promised a bright future as a ninja. Chapter 50, 4th Year 13. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 35. The final day of final exams at the Konoha Academy had arrived, and much had happened this year. The war had started, but the conflict was still brewing, with only small-scale attacks here and there. For Minato, this day marked the beginning of a challenging period. From now on, he could no longer afford the luxury of training, with the war ready to erupt at any moment and the likelihood of being called up with his colleagues. The atmosphere in the academy was thick with anticipation and nervousness among the students. Professor Fuma, with his stern posture and strict attitude, distributed the written exams. Each sheet of paper represented a new challenge, testing the children's knowledge year after year. Minato, seated at his desk, received his exam calmly. He quickly scanned the questionnaire, covering a range of topics from combat strategies and the history of the ninja world to questions on shinobi ethics and chakra manipulation. He began answering the questions with surprising speed, as he had in previous years, and once again, he was the first to complete the exam. When the exams were graded and the scores announced, Minato achieved the highest mark.
Professor Fuma couldn't help but express a rare smile of approval when announcing Minato's result.
Minato was an exemplary student and a role model for the class, with many following his calm and focused style. After the written exam, Professor Fuma began the next phase, the practical demonstration of basic jutsus in the classroom. The same test they had taken at the end of last year, one by one, the students were called to the front of the room to demonstrate their competence in the basic jutsus of transformation, substitution, and clone. When it was Minato's turn, he stood up with the same calm and confidence he had shown in the written exam. He demonstrated the same amount of chakra and mastery of the jutsus as last year, taking first place again, even surpassing Tsuna and Kushina, who had more chakra but not as much mastery of the techniques as Minato.
Perfect score. Fuma nodded in satisfaction. Minato nodded and left the room for lunch with his lunchbox, soon joined by the girls. Did you hear? It seems we will have some people observing our performance this afternoon, Kushina said. My mother mentioned something like that. He arrived in Konoha a few weeks ago from the border to deal with some things with the medical teams and the hospital, Suna said. We are the class that the village has invested in the most since its foundation. It's very likely that the Hokage will appear, as this is our last year, Makoto said. I agree with Makoto, it's very likely that high-ranking people will watch us, Minato said. After lunch, Professor Fuma took them to a special field outside the academy used for Chunin and Jonin training, as the next phase of the exam was physical and elemental ninjutsu tests. The students shared their expectations and anxieties about this part of the test, a crucial evaluation of their physical and combat abilities for their future careers. Professor Fuma had emphasized the importance of these tests, reminding the students that they would be decisive for their final ranking and future placements as shinobis. The professor gave an overview of what would happen, and an unexpected and exciting surprise occurred for most of the Ninja Academy students when they noticed the presence of the Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, accompanied by his students, Jiraiya and Tsunade. The appearance of the village leader immediately generated a buzz among the students. This year, Hokage-sama will personally see your performance, Professor Fuma said with a certain pride, exciting many of the children. Hiruzen, with his imposing presence and serene gaze, watched the young future shinobis gathered. He raised his hand, asking for silence, and when the children quieted down, he began to speak. Dear students, the future of Konoha is in your hands, and it is important for me to see the progress you have made, said the Hokage, his voice resonating clearly. He then made an announcement that raised the level of expectation and excitement among the students. This year, we have decided to recognize the top performers in the final exams with special awards. It will be a way to honor the effort and dedication you have shown over the past years. Immediately, eyes turned to Minato, whose performance was well known to everyone. The expectation was that he would undoubtedly be the top scorer. Jiraiya, standing next to the Hokage, watched the scene with a particular interest in Minato, smiling at his future student. The students, now even more motivated by the Hokage's presence and the promise of rewards, prepared for the start of the physical and elemental jutsu tests. The first physical test of the day was a challenging circuit, designed to be more rigorous and demanding than in previous years. Minato, with his exceptional physical ability and technique, navigated the course with a dexterity he had acquired from Might Do Wei in recent months, overcoming obstacles with ease and impressive speed. His performance not only confirmed his reputation as the best in his class but also left the onlookers, including the Hokage and the Sannin, deeply impressed. On the sidelines of the test field, Hiruzen Sarutobi, Jiraiya, and Tsunade discussed Minato. The boy's physical ability was a topic of particular interest, especially given the rumors circulating about him. He is extraordinary, isn't he? Commented Hiruzen, watching Minato complete the circuit with almost inhuman ease. He didn't even use chakra, it was just physical strength. He seems to have a special body like the Sinjus, but his physical conditioning is also remarkable for his age. Jiraiya, with a thoughtful look, added, there are rumors that he has been using a clone to attend the academy, while the original trains with a genin from the village, Might Do Wei, who is famous for not being able to use ninjutsus, only taijutsus. That would explain this level of physical preparation. Might Do Wei.
It's unusual for an academy student to seek additional training with a genin, especially the brat who could get help both from you, Jiraiya, or have asked for our help in the Senju clan, since he is a close friend of Kushina and my daughter. But if Minato is seeking to train with this genin, Due must have something special. Hiruzen nodded thoughtfully. Yes, this is intriguing. Perhaps I should pay attention to this Due? The Hokage posed the question to himself. As the conversation continued, Minato completed the circuit and prepared for the next test, unaware of the special attention he was receiving from Konoha's higher echelons. The next test for the young academy students was kunai throwing. Minato positioned himself confidently, holding the kunais with precision that reflected years of practice and dedication. He threw each one with impeccable technique after much training, hitting the target with unwavering accuracy. His score was an impressive 100%, a notable improvement compared to his first year, scoring 40% hits, recorded when he joined the academy more than 3 years ago. After Minato's exceptional performance in the kunai throwing test, other students also demonstrated notable skills. Suna Senju, daughter of Tsunade, showed impressive precision, hitting 100% of the targets. Makoto Uchiha and Akuma Uchiha, both from the prestigious Uchiha clan, equally achieved 100%, demonstrating the dexterity and rigorous training of their clan. Kushina Uzumaki, on the other hand, scored 80%. As she collected her kunais, Minato approached the girl. Kushina, you did well, but let me give you a tip to improve your score, he said, gently showing her how to adjust her grip and posture for a more efficient throw. Kushina, who trusted Minato, accepted his help. As Minato helped Kushina, the Hokage observed the scene with growing interest. He noticed Minato's closeness to Kushina, who would soon become the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Hiruzen saw this as a strategic opportunity. If Minato continues to be close to Kushina, it could ensure his continued loyalty to the village, he thought. With Minato's talent and potential, he will be a crucial shinobi for Konoha's future. Hiruzen watched with a calculating look as Minato gave advice to Kushina. In the next test, the students were challenged to demonstrate their skills in ninjutsu. The students showed different levels of mastery among the jutsus they had received. Some failed to have even minimal control due to their low chakra pool or energy control, while others demonstrated the jutsu with moderate to perfect mastery. Finally, it was Minato's turn to step forward and perform his jutsus. Starting with the fire element, Minato executed the Ketan Hozenka no Jutsu, creating multiple fireballs that he accurately launched at the targets. He then transitioned to the lightning element. With a quick series of hand seals, Minato channeled lightning chakra into his hands and unleashed the Raiton Jibashi, creating an electric discharge that hit the designated targets. Lastly, Minato focused on the wind element, the most challenging of all. He performed the seals with incredible fluidity and precision, and then released the futon, Ripusho, creating a powerful gust of wind that not only hit the targets set by the instructors. The boy has an impressive talent for ninjutsu, 3 elements? Even with natural affinity, it's extremely difficult. He even reminds me of the time I sweated to master all 5 elements, the Hokage murmured with satisfaction as he watched Minato's performance. He didn't possess the crystal ball technique at this time, so he only heard from the teachers about the prodigy's performance, and seeing it in person was satisfying for the village's greatest ninja in such a dark time. As soon as Minato finished, the test that everyone had been eagerly awaiting was about to begin, the sparring matches. Now, something quite interesting, Jiraiya spoke, looking at the children, eager to see how they would fare with their new jutsus in a real combat. The air was electric with anticipation as the academy students prepared for the sparring matches. Let's start the sparring matches, announced Professor Fuma. Remember, this is a test of your skills and knowledge. We want to see how you apply what you've learned in a real combat situation. The professor spoke and announced the first match. Namikaze Minato vs Uchiha Makoto. He declared, and everyone wanted to see this fight. Makoto had surpassed Akuma Uchiha this year, making her one of the top students, tied with Suna Senju. Now, she would fight the most talented student in the class and her precious friend. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.